Awesome, awesome, awesome. Hello, everyone, and welcome to your Future Leaders Today, call 69 confirmed. No more guesswork anymore. I went through and double checked where we're up to. So, big warm welcome to everyone that's on the call that's new and that is old, from myself and from Richard. If you are new or need a recap, we run Future Leaders Today because we believe that not only are we under the greatest transference of wealth the world has ever seen, and the greatest disruption it would appear the world has ever seen in every corner of the globe and every industry far and wide. Future Leaders is a space where we can and not only discuss that, but also just start to claim our own sovereignty. There's many forms of sovereignty people can rediscover within inside themselves, but that sense of personal sovereignty, of financial sovereignty, of the ability to own and manage your own space from a financial perspective, that allows a little bit more freedom for yourself to then be able to go out there and help others and create a ripple effect. We think that with blockchain especially, it's not maybe not be the in capital letters, but certainly one of the best things that we've seen to level the playing field a little bit more, to create a bit more fairness, a bit more just in the world, moving us from systems of centralization control to more decentralization, where there's a bit more power within inside the hands of people. And there's some of the things that we want to curate and culture within inside Future Leaders. So as I said, we're on call 69. We've been doing these now for, I think, about a year and a half-ish, something like that. We have gone from every week to every 2 weeks, because it do take a little bit of time for us to curate and to put in, and we do all this out of the goodness of our hearts and for free, because we just want to help people move from space A into space B. So we always start with a little bit of time for people that are new. Now, Ian, you either have been on a call and you just got a really familiar face. Have you been on a call before?
I have been on the call once before. And I'm pretty much new to this whole to the whole blockchain. Mm-hmm. And yeah, so I don't know how my face seems familiar. I'm a music artist, so that might be one of the things.
Maybe you just have a really friendly face, and it just looks like the sort of face that I'd be friends with. So why don't you do this then, Ian? So we always that's good. At least that's how you're familiar. Then do as a recap. Myself and Richard like to have a little bit of an idea of who's on the call. It lets us know whether you're a complete newbie and still learning how to spell crypto, all the way to a full OG with years in the game. So just give us a 30-second, 1 minute roundup of just where you're at, just that we've got a little bit of an idea.
Starting with myself?
Yeah, just yourself. We've done everyone else. Anyone that's new that I just can't place. Sure. I know you said you're new, but like how, what does new mean to you in crypto?
Okay. So if we were to put myself on a scale of 1 to 10, I think I would be a 3 or 4. I think. Okay. In terms of my knowledge in regards to cryptocurrencies, the blockchain, etc. I'm one of those type of individuals that very early on in the whole crypto game, myself and a friend, a DJ friend, we had gotten a computer together and we were trying to get into the mining thing and mining Bitcoins and things like that. And that was just, I guess that would have been around 2013 or so, something like that. And then all of a sudden Bitcoin took that massive dive. Do you remember that? And everybody
the one where it nearly basically collapsed.
Yeah. And then after that, then all the big corporations got involved and it just put us out of the game in terms of mining. So I've actually known about Bitcoin since then, and I actually was really interested in the whole platform. But since that big crash, I've sort of gotten, not turned off, but hesitant, and I didn't know enough, and have been hemming and hawing that whole time, believe it or not. I kick myself in the rear end now, and I want to get involved, but still have a lot of questions, but that's basically my background. I'm a music artist. a producer, and so I work in the realm of the arts, and that's basically it. I'm for freedom. Freedom is my modus operandi. Also, the idea of like you just mentioned, putting the power back into the hands uh, of the mass, being able to have some kind of financial freedom and somewhat of a level playing field. So,
Okay, cool. Thank you very much, Ian. And one quick question, just so we can see if we can weave it into the call. If you were to learn, what's the one piece of information that if you were to learn it or understand it or something like that, would allow you to move 1 or 2 steps forward on your crypto journey? Like, what's the current conundrum that has you in inertia at the current space?
yeah, basically, again, wrapping my head around what makes different currencies valuable, being able to read the charts and read the trends and what's coming and what to stay away from, what possibly to get into, those kinds of things.
Cool. Okay, that's good, because that way we can kind of cover those. So like one of the little side things I want to make sure of, it's not even a side thing, but if everyone leaves the call a little bit wiser, and if everyone can leave the call having answered a question that's pertinent in themselves, to themselves, that's a really good call for me, because we only move forward when we start to get answers to these things. And then, like anything, these calls aren't about you actually moving forward. It's about you learning something. The real work comes when you get off the call over the next 14 days. That's when you start to move forward, because these calls are just collecting parts of thoughts and ideas. And ideally, you should be able to learn a lot on these calls that could take hours of research on, the internet, on YouTube and things like that. That's what we try and do, because we can cover a lot when we can all have dialogue with each other. So thank you very much for that, Ian. You're welcome to keep your camera on, your mic on, whatever you want. All we ask is if your mic's on, same for everybody, just be aware of your environment, that's all. And if it does get too loud, I will mute you. It's not personal. Just click unmute if you need to unmute or anything like that. And we allow people to ask questions whenever you want. Put your hand up, wave, message in the chat, whatever works for you, and we'll bring you in as well. So I'm going to come I'm going to do a round robin if you have something. So I'd love you to just kind of put your hand up to let me know if you've got particular not burning questions, but things that you'd love to get covered on this call. We've already pulled up, I've already got Ben's question. Ben's asking about like a discussion on where are the market heading short term, which I think is kind of similar to Louise's question last week. So we're going to unpack that last time a little bit more as well. Justin, who'd signed up for the call but is not on it at the minute, was asking about income strategies. So we're going to talk a little bit about passive income strategies, especially if we're moving more into a bear market. I think it was Lisa in the chat yesterday was talking about wiggle plan, and AI trading bots and things like that. So I think we're going to start to just bring that in as alternative strategies as well. And then one of the big ones, which Paul asked, but he messaged he can't make the call, which is about stable coins and how much these are going to get regulated. If they do get regulated, what's that going to mean? So these are going to be the golden arrows for us as we go through this call. But I'm going to just look at Ben, at Letitia, at Louise, Paul, if you can hear us there, a different Paul. If you've got anything that you'd love to just throw into the mix that doesn't make sense for you this week, or that you'd love to ask, anything in particular. We haven't, we're all good. Louise?
I think for me, I mentioned the cash flow side of it last week, or whenever the last call was. And then I was going to sign up to Celsius, and I put in the Telegram group about it not being open to new people registering in the UK. But I would like to put the coins that I've got to work a little bit and get some kind of interest for them. So I suppose you're already kind of covering it with the cash flow bit, but that's just something I've been
we can bring that in. So you're talking about like interest bearing spaces and accounts where you can place your coins and they're doing something for you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that's totally cool. So let us think about this then. So stable coins, there's a nice link with passive income. And what was the third thing I said we were going to cover? Market direction. Okay. Yeah, because Justin wanted passive income. So I was just checking, I'm getting all the questions now. Oh, and someone was asking about Serbia. No, Neil asked about top altcoins for long-term portfolio. I'll copy that out as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to cover, we'll kind of go through that, like what's happening within the market in general. Where does that impact stable coins? I'm just going to check, Ian, are you all good with what a stable coin is? Thumbs up if you are, or thumbs down if it makes no sense. You're on mute.
No, I would need to know some information about stable coins. Yes.
Cool, that's fine. We can do that. Either Louise is going to explain to you what a stable coin is, or we're going to get Letitia to, because it's always with obviously being voluntold there. If you really don't want to, you don't have to, but it's way better to, the best way to learn is to teach. So there's no point in me explaining it every time. So we'll cover that.
Do you want me? Hi, Daniel, Leticia here. I'm not showing my face because I'm not camera ready right now. I'm sorry, guys.
It's okay.
But did you want me to answer the
Yeah,
stable
go
coin
for it.
right now?
Explain to Ian what a stable coin is. I may also ask Louise to or someone else to as well to get that different perspective. So try and explain it in a couple of minutes. See if Ian's at a 0 right now in terms of knowledge of a stable coin. Let's see how far we can get him.
Well, my understanding of stable coins is that they their value is tied to the value of the US dollar. So, you know, whereas Bitcoin may be worth right now, I don't know what it's at, 33, whatever it is, US dollars, a Bitcoin, a stable coin will be equal to $1. So one of the stable coins I know about is USDT, and 1 USDT equals 1 USD. If I'm wrong, correct me, but that's my understanding of stable coins so far.
Okay, cool. So far, Ian, does that make sense?
Makes sense. What I got from her was that stable coins are what are tied to the US dollar. So for example, her example of USBT is 1 = 1, 1 to 1 so far.
Yeah. And it's USDT. So USD for United States dollar and T for Tether. Tether being like the brand, the issuer of them. Louise, is there anything you would add to that or say differently that maybe Letitia did or didn't do? What else would you share?
Not that I can think of. To be honest, I've heard the terminology quite a lot. I've never had it explained to me, so it's just been kind of picking up what it means, putting it into context. And I had the same understanding as Letitia. It was my mind. It was kind of like not altcoins, more things that are safer coins as well, like Bitcoin and things that have been around a lot longer, like safer.
Okay. So you were so within the bracket of stable coins, you were including coins that have been there a long time that are well, I suppose more stable because they've been there a long time. Yeah. Okay, cool. So that's a good distinction. So Letitia is right, they're pegged. Anybody else before we just took a couple of points in that wants to add something in particular?
Yeah, I'll add something.
Go for it.
So we explained that it's like 1 to 1 and it's the dollar, but it doesn't have to be a dollar. You can have pounds or whatever else. So I've got some TGBP, which is tied to the Great British Pound.
Cool. And the company that issues those is called?
I have no idea.
Trust. So Trust is another company. Trust make T for trust, GBP. They make T, USD. They make T, CAD. I think they do Aussie dollar as well. So, and they're another brand. I'm just sharing that because whenever you see the 3-letter acronym for a fiat currency, GBP, USD, CAD, Oz, it's probably a stable coin. In fact, last time I had a look, I couldn't find a cryptocurrency, a crypto token, which had in it GBP, USD, things like that, that was not a stable coin. And I think it would be a foolish move to create a new cryptocurrency and call it FUSD because I think people would just assume it's a stable coin. So it doesn't need to be the dollar. It just needs to be pegged 1-to-1 to a fiat currency. Ian, a fiat currency is anything you think of as currency, GBP, USD, all those things. And the big reason they got made is because as an exchange, a crypto exchange, if you work with cryptocurrency, if you work with stable coins, you can sell your Bitcoin into a stable coin. Therefore, it's safe, but it doesn't need a bank. If every time you sell your Bitcoin, you have to sell it to dollars or pounds, the money has to leave and go to some regulated part of finance. And so cryptocurrency world wanted a way to be able to move fluidly between volatile cryptocurrencies, and Bitcoin is a volatile one, Louise, just so even though it might seem safer, it's still changing in value a lot. And people wanted to sell out of these into something that wasn't fiat money that goes in a bank, and that's where stable coins come into it. So cool. Thank you very much for everyone sharing there. It's always good to just see where everyone's at, and you learn little bits as we go along the way. Okay, so let's see where we get to with things.
I would just say as well,
we're gonna
just to embellish on Alan's point. I mean, you do have there's packed gold as well, I guess, which is, it's still got a unit of a dollar, I think, basically, but it's pegged to an equal amount of gold. So it's not pegged to a fiat currency per se, like an actual dollar or a pound. It's pegged to a unit of measurement that is equal to it, basically. So that's just worth mentioning as well.
Yeah, you could probably actually say it's pegged to an external asset. So within the crypto space, you have coins that exist on their own, like Bitcoin, and then these stable coins are pegged to something that is a real world asset, because you also get things that track the stock of Tesla. So within the crypto world, it shouldn't be volatile. It will do exactly what Tesla stock does in the stock market. So I think the thing is it's pegged to something else, and gold and fiat are the big boys, I suppose, that are out there. Go on, Ian.
I have a question. So if these stable coins are pegged to fiat currency like the US dollar, what's the downside to that? Because I'm sensing there's a downside to that.
It's really funny because that's part of the big questions being asked at the minute. It's not so much a downside. It depends what you consider risk. I mean, if you're in a Western country, the government guarantees a certain percentage of the money you hold in a bank as safe. It's not 100%. So if the bank goes bust, up to a certain value, they promise your money safe, or some of your money safe. With stable coins, these are companies who issue them, who kind of go, well, we've got $1 million in the bank, we're going to issue 1 million tokens 1-to-1. And the idea is they have this money here, because if they can just print more tokens, then they might print more tokens than they have cash in the bank, which then means if everybody tried to withdraw all their tokens, they couldn't. Like when they talk about when there's a run on the banks and banks don't have the money to give people, because as most people know now, banks work on fractional reserves. They only actually hold this much money and give out this much. So there is a downside in some respects to that, although most people wouldn't suddenly just go and remove all their money. But it comes down to trust, I think, is the biggest thing. Is, do you trust a government more as an issuer of currency, or do you trust a company that has varying levels of obscurity and to hold your money in it? If you had 100 grand in the bank, there's a part of your system that thinks, well, that money's there, it's not going to go anywhere. If you take 100 grand out and you move it into crypto, you have to trust what you're doing there, because there's no fallback. You can't pick up the phone and say, hey, where's my money gone? So it's not necessarily a risk. I don't see the risk necessarily with the stable coin. The risk is crypto and how well you understand it, how well you use it, that would be my take on it. Richard, do you want to put a 2 pence over it?
Just from the point of view, I think which we'll touch on it a little bit more. It's some of these companies have got varying degrees of regulation, and as a result, varying degrees of audits. So, have they actually got the dollar that matches the stable coin to the equal amount? Yeah, we'll come up. We'll touch on the current predicament that I think we're going to find ourselves in the stable coins in a bit. But I think a lot of these have got so big now that that they are creating the movement in the markets of Bitcoin and all the other cryptocurrencies. And so a lot of the value can be attributable to them. So if you have any other market issues outside of crypto, then potentially it can be affected by those stable coins can be affected by them. So there's a lot of moving parts. I think the issue we've got at the moment is some of these have got very big compared to I think what's the market cap.
I think I'm pretty certain this is of Tether. Let's have a look. I looked the other day. I think it's 60 billion.
Yeah, 60 billion.
There you go. Market cap 62 billion. So this just goes to show it's not got the chart here for what these are, but I'll tell you now, green is Tether. Yellow and blue is one's going to be USDC. Not sure what the other one would be. USDC could be Binance USD being yellow. In fact, yeah, USDC is going to be blue. Binance will be yellow. But the reason I'm showing you this is just how much it's grown. I mean, it's exponential. I was trying to find a chart since the very beginning, but I can't.
In the last year, it's 10 times. I think that's what it's done.
Yeah.
So Daniel, would this imply? May I ask a question?
Yeah, of course.
Daniel,
this is actually ironically
this
is what we wanted to talk about anyway. So this is all very appropriate.
Yeah, that's very interesting. So would this imply that people are basically feeling increasingly comfortable using these stable coins for transactions now, and perhaps even as an alternative to the dollar? What do you think?
Let me stop this share. So I've been trying to wrap my head around this. There's definitely more trust in it. So much so that yesterday, the SEC, the Fed, and like 3 other American acronym organizations all met to discuss one topic. And that topic was how much of a threat are stable coins to either the US economy or the global economy. Because for as long as we move and pay for things in stable coins, that is a form of currency, even though it's pegged 1-to-1, it's a form of currency that does not require the Fed. No money had to get printed in order for us to do what we do. In theory, we operated completely out of the traditional economic model. So as this gets bigger and bigger, let's say I've got a company and I'm spending 20,000 a month, and the company I buy from in Europe are happy to receive Tether, and I start sending them stablecoin again. Like once it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, there comes a point where people start to look at it. So it is being used more, but I don't think it's representative of how much it is being used. And this is where I lose my head a little bit, because Tether can print money whenever they want. Now they say they print money to meet the demand of people that want to use Tether. But they're not audited. And as you can see from that image I showed you earlier, like you saw how much bigger Tether was than everything else. Like Tether's at 60 billion market. No, there's 60 billion, isn't it? Yeah. 60 billion market cap. And the nearest one underneath it's at 25. So nearly a third of that. but between them, you're talking like huge sums of money. So does that mean that there's that much money moving around with it? No, not necessarily. Like, I don't know. I know that with USDC, they're fully audited. So for every dollar they have in circulation as a stable token, they can show an equal dollar in fixed money somewhere else. So you could argue in that instance that, yes, they issued a token over here, but it's always linked to a dollar. But, and this news comes up all the time, and I'm not for it or against it, but I'm just going to speculate it. With Tether, if Tether mint $10 billion tomorrow, but don't change their cash reserves, then they just created money. And from a government perspective, the only people that can create money is the government. So then that starts to become a threat, because if the people start using this money within the crypto space, and it has no real world value, it's not linked to anything, then where do you draw the line? And how big does this get? Tether do say that they're fully linked, but they don't allow audits, or they have audits, but they're a bit more hazy. Let's say, like USDC is owned by, it's owned by Coinbase, isn't it?
Yeah, Coinbase, yeah.
Yeah, and Coinbase are trying to be very regulated. Yeah. Letitia says they can't be more of a threat than the government entities are. I may agree with that, but that's got nothing to, it doesn't stop the question when you said, like, is there more trust in it? There could be, but then the reason these people met yesterday was to potentially bring in regulation to stop it all. So we have to be aware of that, because if we start to trust it and use it more, you need to be aware of what might be coming at the same time. And it's the big Pandora's box is being opened right now. And today, a lot of news came through from the EU about bringing more regulation into wallets. They weren't talking about stable coins necessarily, but every week, there's more and more conversations now around putting some tighter controls within crypto. And stable coins is the big one. It's a really big one. Richard, do you think from a stable coin perspective, that it has already reached a trusted space, or do you think it's still quite Wild West and piratey from a market perspective?
I think if you're, if you're into crypto and you've ever sold anything, I mean, 9 times out of 10, once you're into crypto, I suppose I can speak for myself. I suppose you understand the system better. Like Letitia said, it's no, the governments are printing money, and it's backed by absolutely nothing. They're printing trillions of dollars, and we're on the fast track to inflation, because it isn't backed by anything at all. But we're in the system where people intrinsically kind of trust governments, just because that's the way it is, and they trust the banking system. The people are peeling the layers off now, but people will trust because they feel like they can see their money in the bank. But the longer you're in crypto, and the more you understand the options you've got between decentralization and centralization of an ownership of your own money, and how you spend it. The longer you stay in that space, the more likely you are to have used a form of stable coin at the same time. And there's a few people on this call that will have, instead of taking profits from cryptocurrency that they might have invested in and taking it out the bank and putting it in, taking it out of crypto and put it into pounds or dollars or whatever it is, they'll go and think, well, actually, if I go and put it in the bank, and I understand that the banking system is, if inflation is 5, 10, 15% that it is at the moment, if I put those pounds or dollars in the bank, then effectively what I'm doing is I'm losing 10 to 15% on my money per year. And instead, there's a thing called a stable coin. I understand crypto. I can see how this works. I can see how big the market is. I can see how it's being utilized. I can make a choice then to say, well, I don't want to go into fiat. I'll go into stable coins. I'll take my profit, but I can go and earn on that profit, you know, and you can get, depending on the stable coin and the platform, between, you know, 3, 4, up to 20% a year on your stable coin. So back to your original question, is it trusted? It's only trusted if you're in the space, right? And I think you've had the curtain pulled back a little bit to really understand how the system works, and you make your own decision about your own money and how the government, the Fed, the central banks are acting. So I think there's a big play at the moment to do a number of things. It's to spook people out of crypto, and it's going to work, I think, to a certain degree. But people that really understand it are going to stay there. But I think the ultimate agenda here is to really push the central bank digital currency. So people, you know, the Fed, the Bank of England, they're all talking about the Chinese bank, Chinese government are all talking about launching their own central bank digital currency, which is effectively a stable coin. You know, what's it going to be pegged to? But that's essentially how they're going to, what they want to do, and they're pushing it really through really quickly. So this agenda now is taking over to the point where stable coins are the biggest threat at the moment to, not threat, but the thing in the way for central bank digital currencies to gain traction. And we can talk about how that might happen, which is I think is a separate conversation, basically about how central banks will get you to adopt a digital currency. But fundamentally, I think that's the play there, and that's why that meeting happened yesterday, and that's why it'll be interesting in the next couple of days, I think, to see how people digest that information.
So, Ian, I'm using you as my anchor at the minute. How much, and I know a lot of it's new, so I'm not expecting a 10 out of 10 in terms of absorption, but are some pennies dropping and bits of information filling the proverbial jigsaw? Yeah? Okay, cool. The central bank did, go on.
No, I was just going to say, out of 10, if you were going to do an out of 10 scenario, I'm going to say 8 out of 10 right now.
That's good. That's good.
Perfect.
Then we've got you way further than I thought we would need to. So that's good. So because the whole thing on central bank digital currencies is a really big, and it brings in ethics and morals, and there's a lot to it. Like there's a big part of me, I am pro central bank digital currencies. There's only because I think banks, whose job it is meant to be to help, sorry, ants, whose job it is meant to help grease the wheels and get stimulus out, do a terrible job of it and keep it and end up getting richer and richer. One of the best benefits of central bank digital currencies is that you can immediately target and stimulus and give stimulus to demographics of society that really need it. But with that great power is huge responsibility, because you could also take it away. So in a single second, you could target single mums who are under the age of 25, and they get an extra 100 a week. I'm picking something random, yeah? Or that could really help them at their age with everything that's going on. But then having that data and having that capability to be able to do that, you can only start to begin the amount of oppression you could have, right? Anybody that shopped here or sent an email to somebody about anti-government stuff, you get minus 100. You know, it never ends. Once you have that amount of power, it's like a knife. Are you buttering bread or are you hurting somebody? Like, it has both sides of the power. But before we move on, I want to just kind of cover Neil's question that he's put in the chat. Go on, Justin. Cheers for joining.
Yeah. Or the big one, you know, for as a way to force people to get vaccinated. And in addition, I mean, the other thing that I see is that once a central bank digital currencies are established, they can also designate how those funds can be used, including specifying which companies are eligible to receive them and which ones are not. So there's a lot of risks from that stuff.
Yeah, this is one of the reasons why I like crypto. It pervades all spaces at the minute, and it's not just about buying some tokens and making some money. Like there's a lot of impact that it's having. I want to cover something Neil said here, which is the fundamental ultimate question, which is what is the ultimate downside risk of holding large amounts of funds in stable coins? Could they ever be wiped out? And I'll give my 2 pence on this. Sorry, my computer is pinging loads and I just want to make it stop. It went.
And I'm just like,
closed.
why would you ever
go
be
on.
holding? Why would you ever be holding large amounts of stable coins to begin with, rather than if you were going to hold the stable coin, why not just hold the fiat if it's just pegged to it?
So good starting question, but the answer to that question is the answer also to the question you asked, which is passive income strategies. So Justin's question in the group to begin with was to ask about passive income strategies, which is similar to what Louise is talking about, like interest-bearing accounts. And a really short answer before we go into what they could be, but passive income strategies, you either, doesn't matter what they are, you earn from them. And you earn because you either hold, well, you're always holding cryptocurrencies, but they're either volatile cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin, all the way down to really random poo coins at the bottom of the pack, or you're holding stable coins, which are stable. So you put 10 grand in, and in 3 months, it's still worth 10 grand, but you're getting paid out on that. So there is a viable reason why you would hold large amounts of stable coins. The question then becomes, how much do you hold, which comes down to risk and understanding and various things. But let's assume for the minute that you have weighed up your options. You are quite comfortable to picking a figure. You're going to put 25 grand into stable coins, and because you're going to earn, I don't know, you're going to earn 50% a year, and you're happy with the risk and the reward. Neil's question then is, what's the ultimate downside to that? Like, could they be wiped out, and or what's the thing to watch for? So my answer to this is, it's a little, because these are companies, it's a little bit like looking at stocks and shares. I would be interested to know whose coin is it you're holding, because not all stable coins are made equal. I mean, if I just share this screen now. So number 3 is a stable coin. That's 3 out the whole world with 60 billion market cap. Number 6 with 27 billion market cap. Number 9 with 11 billion. So, and these are 3 huge companies. This one in particular being heavily regulated, heavily audited, which means they have full accounts certified to show that in a bank, USDC has 27 billion in fiat currency. So the chance of USDC going bust is low. The chance, in my opinion, the chance of USDC, even the second risk to look at is regulation. The chance of USDC being regulated out the space or sued, or just the things the SEC loves to do, is very low. So then I look at like hacks and things, which is the other risk you have, because Neil's question talked about the downside of stable coins, but it has an assumption, or I take an assumption from it. If I take my stable coins and I go and put them on a platform, let's say Celsius, if Celsius gets hacked, that's a risk, but that risk had nothing to do with the stable coin. Do you see the difference between those two? I'm going to look at Louise for that. So do you see how, like, if you've, we could look at a stable coin all day and determine that it's safe. But as soon as you take the stable coin and you stake it somewhere to earn a return, or you put it into a platform or a system, you now have a third party risk. And that risk is how well that system is protecting your stable coin. And if it got hacked or something happened and that company went bust, you might have lost your stable coin, but that is not because of a flaw of the stable coin. Think of the platform a bit like a car park, and think of your car a bit like a stable coin. But when you put your car in the car park, you leave the keys, which means if someone breaks into the car park, they can steal your car, but your car security was not the problem because your keys are there. Someone just opens your car and drives away. So I want to bring that in because Neil asked that question. So that would be my take on what the ultimate risk is the cryptocurrency itself being some people doing a run on it, people doing a scam on it, anything like that. That would be that, and regulation would be the biggest things to watch for. Richard, have you got any other takes you'd have on that?
I think up until probably, I mean, Tether USDT has always had lots of fog around it in terms of, you know, whether they've got the assets behind it and all the rest of it. So there's always been that sort of question mark, and as they've got bigger, obviously, like I said before, that question's got big, has become more prevalent. But I think fundamentally, I think we're in a very new space. You know, I think if you put your crypto on any platform, you've got the same risk as whether it's a stable coin or it's Bitcoin or whatever it is, right? You've got that same risk, but that's sort of you know, the platform. This has shown you, like literally in the last week, in terms of the regulation of them. I don't think anyone really kind of knows. So like I was saying, it's really important to sort of keep an eye on the market at the moment. I personally probably, not financial advice or anything, but I would probably, Tether is the big one that people are going to be going to. So if you've got stuff in Tether, you might be thinking, do you want to keep it in Tether at this moment in time? And for some of the things we've talked about might be a better option at this point. But no doubt it's an issue, but it's that no one really knows what the full downside risk is right now. But I think the fact is, as you can see, there's 60 billion worth of Tether in the market, so it's a lot, and everyone's got the same problem because it's the big daddy. I think there are other things at play as well in terms of the wider markets. We were chatting a bit before the call. I was talking about it. There's much point going into long detail about it, but I think there's things going on with banks at the moment where they don't want to issue any sort of credit. It's because they actually don't want the way the system's set up, the debt-based system. They don't want they don't want to make loans to people because they see there's some systemic risk in the system. So I potentially see another risk at the moment where because of that, all the liquidity in the actual dollar market could get sucked out, which could then, you know, it affects everywhere because it'll affect every single asset ultimately. But one of the ones that's under scrutiny at the moment is crypto and stable coins. So you have to sort of think about how many flows from stable coins into dollars, and if there's a liquidity crisis in dollars, how's liquidity going to get from stable coins into dollars, if that's what people want to do. But you know, it's speculation at the moment. I think there's so many big things going on all at the same time. I think as you introduced the call, Daniel, you know, there's so much going on all at the same time that no one really knows for sure. But so to round that off, I guess it's so new, this sort of idea of this downside risk to crypto in terms of the actual systems that it's built on and stuff, and how it's sort of regulated or not, as the case may be at the moment.
I think the biggest thing, we've been in a bit of a bubble in terms of I don't want to say hype, but let's say like, yeah, this is hype. Like everything's been good. I used to say when I did a lot of business coaching that you can't really tell the caliber of a business if it's riding a surfboard, because when everyone's riding the surfboard, it's great. You know, you're there, you're riding. When you fall off the surfboard, when the company fucks up, when when the employee has difficulty, when whether it's customer or whether you're within the business, you only know the true caliber of an entity, of a person, of a company, when a problem has occurred. Because now we're looking at, okay, how does it react and respond to that? And if I was to go in business with anybody, my first question is like, tell me all the worst decisions you've ever made, because what you did as a byproduct of those decisions really tells me a lot about your caliber. So a lot of the crypto world, especially stable coins, has been pretty plain sailing, other than Tether. Tether's had some really murky things out there, but always seems to recover. I mean, they're so far ahead in terms of market dominance. And they make, one of mine and Richard's mentors is a really early investor in Bitfinex, who created Tether, and looks at all their audits and looks at how much money they're sat on. And if you own an exchange, especially a big exchange, you're making money on every single trade, and billions of dollars is traded every day. These guys are sat on so much money. They're so rich. I read something the other day that based on the amount of tokens Binance burnt, that's an estimated 2 billion net profit in quarter four. In this last quarter, 2 billion in profit in the last quarter, and they're not even the same size in terms of how much money goes through as Bitfinex, who own Tether. So we're in this space right now where it's getting a bit turbulent, and I think for me, if there was one downside, it's regulation, because when regulation comes in, and it will, it absolutely will, the question then is going to become, okay, well, how does that impact things? But I don't think for a single second, especially if you're using an audited coin, USDC, or in the chat, me and Paul were just talking about a coin called Trust, and Trust on quite a few different coins, just to show you, like they've got, what have we got here? True USD, GBP, Aussie dollar, Canadian dollar, and Hong Kong dollar. So these guys make a lot, and they're all independently attested with live updates of proof of reserve on chain. So I'm not going to delve into that, but that would look like they're doing the work to show that they are holding what they say they're holding. So even if regulation came in, your money doesn't disappear. Like there'd just be a transition into some new world. These guys would get regulated. How it would work is a very big question. But the biggest
turbulent.
It will be, but you wouldn't, even if you wanted to exit, even if at that point you had 10 grand sat in true GBP, you're not going to wake up tomorrow and your money's gone, because true GBP is holding 10,000 in GBP. So the worst case scenario, the central government would say, well, look, you're holding 10,000 in that coin there. Instead of it being true GBP, you're going to use HMRC GBP. God, that's horrible to say. So I do think there would be a transition between the two. The biggest risk, and we'll come on to this when we start talking about income strategies, the absolute number one biggest risk in the crypto world is unregulated shit. And that's a positive slant on it. You're dealing with the equivalent of the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s of people talking to spirits and people connecting with other realms, which I am a very open 5D quantum S type person, and I believe in all that, but my God, is there 95%, 98% charlatans, but definitely once of a day. And I have no idea to what extent now, but you're dealing with something that they're trying to regulate, because without regulation, I can come along to you guys right now and tell you guys, I have made the best thing in the world. You all give me some of your money, and then you go away. And if you go and get some friends and I'll give you a bit of their money, and it's not a Ponzi scheme, it's not, or a pyramid scheme, but I get more money than all of you. Think of it a bit like a triangle, but don't. And I've heard all of this. So that's the biggest risk in the industry, which is down to people's greed, really, and trusting in a system. But then on the other side of it, you've got the risk of threat of hacking, because you're dealing with cryptocurrency. That doesn't mean that there aren't some programs and platforms out there that offer great returns that are safe, or as safe as they appear to be, that look genuine, that tick all the boxes you're looking to tick. But from what I've looked out there, it is disproportionate, because greed is greed, and you've got people that don't care and would just go make something for the love of it, and you've got people on the other side that are greedy and want it, and have so much confirmation bias that they refuse to see, but literally can't see the wood for the trees. That's the risk. That risk is far greater, like by 100x. It's a far greater risk than whatever is going to happen with stablecoins, particularly USDC being the most. Would you say, Richard, that out of all the top 10 stablecoins, USDC is probably the safest stablecoin?
I think just from the point of view that it's a publicly traded company, so they're under the scrutiny of so many regulators. I haven't used it myself,
and they're audited every 4 months, aren't they?
Yeah.
3 months.
I suppose the only other question to ask is whether you think the dollar's worth anything, because they printed so many trillions of it, it's been inflated into oblivion. So at that point, it's like, well, if your dollar, is it better to use something like Pax Gold, because gold it's going to be worth what gold's worth, right? It's not going to be necessarily worth what a dollar's worth. But that's just, I'll just throw that out there as something else where from an asset preservation perspective, it might be better.
I was just about to ask a question on a similar kind of thing, is that from my point of view, since getting involved in crypto, my understanding of it has been that, like you said at the beginning of the call, Daniel, it's like going to be probably one of the biggest changes that we've ever witnessed in our lifetime. And it makes me feel that fiat currency is going to become worthless because we'll be more on crypto, like, instead of fiat currencies. So like when I'm investing in it, it's with the view that that's going to go up and that the fiat currency will become worthless. So if you're putting money in a stable coin that's linked directly to fiat currency, then if that's what's your opinion on it? Do you think it will go down as crypto becomes more popular over time? Because then surely your stable coins will go down in value, if I'm understanding that correctly.
Yeah, no, and this is the other side of it, because like I'm in crypto for not for that reason, but I'm one of my values that's being ticked being in crypto is putting my money into a system that is outside the traditional system. So then if I go into a coin that's pegged to the outside system, and I think the outside system isn't going to last very long, you would think that's a bit silly. As Justin said, why would you do that? You just hold your money in dollars. Like it makes no sense. And you're right if you have that view. So if you're like, oh, I've got 100 grand in dollars, I don't think fiat's going to last long, so I'll put my 100 grand in stable coins. That might not be the safest thing in the world if that's your view. And we could spend all day with deciding whether or not that's actually going to happen. The other side of it is, to counter that, banks and governments are not going to suddenly collapse and go away. Those, whoever they are, that have had a large influence in finance and money creation and the influence that we've seen around the world, the names you hear, your Rothschilds, your Rockefellers, the people that have had families with wealth for thousands of years, they're not just going to disappear. So this whole system that's been set up, that's why they're trying to create central bank digital currencies. And the minute they do, and they will, that will just absorb what you call fiat. And because nobody wants panic, whether you're good or bad or for or against, panic is uncontrollable. Look at South Africa as a perfect example of panic. Yeah, and my heart goes out to what is occurring out there. But like, panic destroys both sides, really. So when you're talking about global world economy and fiat, and the banks are broke, which they are, governments are broke, which they are, something has got to give. And the likeliest give is that a central bank digital currency will come along, will absorb fiat, and a fresh wave of stimulus will occur. So I don't think it will ever go to zero. But in terms of if you're moving your money into crypto, there's only two spaces you put it in crypto. You put it into a crypto asset, Bitcoin as an example, or you would put it into stable coin, but you would be doing that to generate a return, at which point it's then an asset. Does that make sense? And you'd be doing that because you can't do it over here. I've got 50 grand, which I need to keep fluid. I don't want to put, I've put money into Bitcoin before years ago thinking, I'll just quickly get an extra 5 grand. Yeah. Woke up the next day, boom. And a little side note, I wasn't meant to put any more money into crypto at the time. So it was a secret thing I was doing. My missus isn't on this call. Anyway, I had to wait 9 months and I just didn't tell her, and it went back up again. And I wiped a lot of sweat off my brow. But if I'd have just put that from pounds into TGBP and earned 10%, at any single point, if we needed that money, even if deflation has deflated it, it's still 10 grand.
Yeah.
So I hold money in stable coins in the crypto world because I get good returns on it and I can operate in certain systems. I'm not doing that because I think this is going to collapse. I'm doing that because I'm like, well, why would I keep it here and get 0. whatever percent when I can get 20 to 30% here?
Yeah. That's
a no-brainer for me because I deem the risk here to be low. I'm comfortable with it. I feel safe with it. I don't think it's going to get hacked. I don't think it's going to get disappear tomorrow. So I go ahead with it. Does that answer the question?
Yeah. I think right now it makes sense to do stable coins because, like you say, you've got the inflation in the bank, or you've got the interest that you can be earning having it in a stable coin. I think from my point of view, I mean, nobody knows what's going to happen because crypto is a new thing, but I feel like, the pound and the dollar and stuff will become worth less and less as crypto becomes, that kind of overtakes. But obviously nobody kind of knows what's going to happen, but I don't want to put money in stable coins and then that to kind of drop as crypto overtakes. It's like
but I don't think crypto, just so we've got a distinction, because I think you said at the beginning, crypto won't overtake fiat. My opinion, crypto won't overtake fiat because we're making the assumption that even if you include stable coins in crypto, they won't overtake the use of fiat. The amount of fiat that moves around the planet right now is so big. I can't even find the number. Like, I think it's 6 trillion a day is moved just between banks, 6 trillion. And the market cap of crypto right now is 2 trillion. That's the total market cap of everything. And half of that's Bitcoin. So crypto won't replace fiat. Blockchain, which would contain a central bank digital currency, may one day replace fiat. And then you could say cryptos replace fiat, but within crypto is a central bank digital currency. So I don't think that world will ever come. And if it does come, you're talking about the removal of so many large institutions that of the likelihood scenarios that are in the near future. I can't see that, as much as sometimes I would want it. And if we remove some of those institutions, unfortunately, I think you would have global mass panic. And if you have global mass panic, the last thing you're thinking about is crypto. Like, it's so big that I just think it's a dystopian future where everything would completely break down in order for fiat to not be used, and we live on crypto. And the only reason crypto works is because people around the world run these little computers and they're little geeks and they're firing up all these systems and keeping it going. And the only reason that keeps going is because there's energy being made to produce it. And the only reason energy keeps going is because they're owned by these huge institutions who pass money around. We're so intrinsically connected that has to keep going as we transition into a better future. That's my view. And I've spent ages trying to work out how we could do that quicker or simpler. And all routes seem to end up with chaos because most people are not ready to accept a world that's too dissimilar from the world they're in right now. It would drive them. It's too unknown. Does that help separate why I don't think crypto will replace fiat? Yeah. Okay, cool.
I think it just to round that off, I think the distinction is, I think that it's not that the dollar can go to zero. or the pound or fiat that can go to zero. It's the fact that it's worth less. So you can't buy, you know,
Purchasing power.
the purchasing power. But I mean, you know, everyone's what's the saying? The US dollar is the global reserve currency until it isn't. Right. Right now it is, and it's going to take a lot for it to sort of for it to completely get taken over. But there's definitely a war underway behind the scenes to make that happen. But at the end of the day, like in terms of stable coins or fiat or whatever it is, it's like, does your stable coin or your, you know, fiat dollar, what does it buy you right now? You know, like fuel's going through the, you know, the price of petrol and is going up, but or is it that the fiat is kind of worth less basically, yeah, because of the amount of money printing has gone on. And that's the thing. So it's kind of like, is there an option at any point? There isn't at the moment, but the thing that's going to accelerate this adoption of crypto alongside potentially fiat is ways to spend your crypto, ways to spend the asset that you've got. You can kind of spend Bitcoin at the moment, but you can't go everywhere and you know, exchange a wallet with the guy down the shop to buy whatever it is you need in Bitcoin. You can in some places, but it's not common at the moment. But I think that is going to accelerate more. It's going to be how can you spend the assets that you've got. That's where the curve will happen, basically.
A little side note on that.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, out here, a lot of people use. There's companies that are setting themselves up as intermediaries. So there's a site called BitPay, and on that site they accept all forms of crypto that you could think of, and they sell everything from gift cards and credit on pretty much all the big sites that you're ever aware of. So if you wanted to, let's say you do buy a lot of things on Amazon, I'm picking it as an example, then you can buy a $100, $200, $300, $5,000 gift card, pay with crypto, and you immediately, it's all done, really smart interface. You buy a gift card, you go into Amazon, you put the gift card in, boom, you've now got $100 credit on Amazon. And they also set themselves up now, they can pay gas bills, utility bills, rent, all sorts of things, and they take like a 0.01% fee. So it's not direct adoption, but direct adoption takes time, but it's a start.
I think the interesting thing about that is you're obviously in Mexico, and it's happening a lot where the countries are reliant or have been had to adopt a dollar, you know, the dollar in some sort of form, either, you know, systemically or as a medium of exchange. I know, you know, so it's interesting that that's happening in those places where regulations are a little bit less. You know, you can get what you want basically.
A bit easier.
A bit easier. So, but that's where the innovation comes from, right? And that's where the availability starts. You know, it starts from the ground up at that point. You certainly can't do that here at the moment unless you really, really search for it.
I think I'm pretty certain that it's a global service. It's actually not to do with Mexico, but people are using it out here. I want to, Ian, I'll answer your question, but I want to make sure I also cover Paul and Neil's question in the chat. But go on, Ian, you're on mute. Do you want to mute yourself? Ian?
So my question is, can you tell me one more time what the name of that platform was you were just speaking about?
Which one?
You were just talking about the platform that can link, that it will allow you to do things like you know, pay bills and
BitPay.
Okay. BitPay.
BitPay. Okay.
Yeah, I'll pull up some. Just 1 second. There's a guy here that only lives on Bitcoin, and he has a big thing of them.
And the second thing I'd like to ask is, Richard had mentioned a stable coin that was attached to gold, which is Pax Gold, if I'm correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is there a stable coin that would be attached to silver?
I'm not aware of one. I'll have to do a quick search for that.
I think there is. I don't know if it's. I think it's not a stable coin, but you can buy a token that's attached to silver. Because silver's a little bit more volatile than gold, so it's less stable.
So you mean like you could buy something, so in effect you're buying paper gold, paper silver?
Or like a crypto that's like, yeah, in the same way, like not like an ETF, but you know what I mean? Kind of like it's
Okay,
not pegged to
if
it either,
you-
but it reflects it.
If you want to have a look at that, it's 12 minutes past, just so people know. This call might run over a little bit because we've still got a couple of things to cover. So if you do need to leave at past, then by all means do. If you're cool to stay around a bit longer, we'll see if we can cover everything. So Paul said, with the unregulated risk, do you believe that it's better to trade on Binance, which is under the lens, or Coinbase, which is more regulation compliant? I mean, the short answer for that is, of course, Coinbase is safer. I mean, I would be a fool not to say that. Yeah. I'm personally just not a fan of Coinbase. And I think that right now, the amount of pressure that's gone into Binance is because they're the biggest exchange out there, and they're just not happy with the amount of money Binance are not paying people. Binance sit in this, a lot of exchanges sit in this strange space of unregulation, and they don't fit in that bracket or that bracket. And so they're making billions of dollars and no one is getting that in tax revenue. Any government at some point, or even the IMF, when they all start getting together, like that's not, they want their slice of the pie. So I think Binance will do everything it needs to do to gain compliance. And even if they don't, there are hundreds of exchanges that have no KYC and under no regulation. So even if Binance had to sit in that space, you can still trade on them. They aren't going to go anywhere. And this is where the word KYC comes into it. For Ian, KYC is know your customer. Every time an exchange says, show us your passport, every time it does anything, every time they want to know who you are, that's KYC. Paul, which is Sacred Synergy, is asking with regards to an AI trading platform that we both use. It won't matter if you don't have KYC. So I don't know if on Binance, you've told them who you are. If you haven't told them who you are, you're in the ever-growing list of users who are just using Binance. If you have told them who you are, and you've told them you are, for example, say it was me, a British citizen, then if the British government forced, or if Binance chose to limit accounts for British people, that would be a problem for you. So it comes down to whether it's, if it knows who you are. Side note, for any of you that ever go on any platforms that are to make you money or anything, I would always open up a bespoke separate account. One, it keeps things separate. Two, if it ever, that way you can see how much you've earned or lost or anything like that. But also, if anything ever got stopped in the crypto world, and what you go to log into your account one day and it's frozen for some unforeseen regulatory compliance reason, the last thing you want to find out is that all of your crypto assets have been frozen. That's not a good space to be in. So it's good to keep things separate, even if they're on the same exchange. So give us a thumbs up, Paul, if that answers, or tell us.
So yeah, Dan, the thing is, so I've done KYC on Binance, right? Can you hear me, yeah?
Yep.
Okay, I've done KYC on Binance, and I'm considering putting the large majority of my Bitcoin and Ethereum holdings on there to use with the AI, but I'm a little bit apprehensive because of regulation.
Just 1 second. Just tried to stop his video. We'll see if he comes back. Okay, so we've lost you there, Paul, but I was understanding what you were saying there. If you've already done KYC on Binance, open up another Binance account and don't do KYC on it. And that way this is nothing to do with whether you choose to declare your taxes or not. That is a totally different, separate thing. But at least then the account itself isn't going to be flagged or stopped because of some regulatory change. You'll also pay less fees if you use Binance versus Coinbase. But if you're unsure or anything like that, then just use Coinbase. But I'm not concerned at all by the amount of flack Binance is getting at the minute. The fact that in the space of 1 week, 5 different countries all wrote about Binance negatively tells me that that didn't just coincidentally happen. And someone could say, oh, well, you're just connecting the dots and speculating. I am, but like this stuff doesn't, like there's so many meetings of IMFs and governments and things that go on when 5 governments all of a sudden have an issue with Binance. I think it's even more now. That means they're going after them, and they're going after them because they're going to want to create some FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. They're going to want to create a bit of a ruckus. And Binance is the biggest boy out there, and he's paying nobody not much money. So it's the logical thing to go after somebody like that. But I'm not concerned at all about my holdings within it. But I'm already quite diversified is the wrong word, but everything's segregated for me. I use multiple different exchanges. I've got multiple different wallets, and that creates for me a little bit more space. If I just had one account on one exchange, Binance, then I might have concern. So for Paul's question earlier, if you're looking at putting a lion's share of your accounts into it, of your money into it, then you might want to just consider setting it up on a separate one. At least then you're more free. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, it does. Thank you, brother. Thanks for
cool.
taking so much time to answer.
And so then Neil says, so what I'm hearing you say, Daniel, is that it's best to stake for passive income on things like Uniswap with stable coins versus staking Bitcoin or Ethereum. And I would say no to that. That's not what I'm saying. I don't know if you want to just explain that a little bit, Neil, where you got that from, just so I know that before I answer. If you are free to talk.
Yeah, sure. Hello.
Cool, man. Go for it.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I was just no. Well, I guess DeFi is a whole deep topic we can be here for days, but that's why I thought you were kind of alluding to was staking with actual stable coin like USDC or USDT or whatever versus actually staking the crypto. But obviously you can do both strategies, but that's what I thought you said. But I guess I misunderstood.
I think in short, both strategies. Let's take Louise, right? Let's say Louise, she's diversifying out of property. She's put 10 grand into Bitcoin. Okay. So she's got 10 grand in Bitcoin. Now she's bought that 10 grand because her view is asset appreciation. She hopes in 10 years, it'll be worth 100 grand. So she's not going to sell it. So in that instance, eventually the brain, when you're in this space, starts to move to DeFi, and she'll come on one of these calls and she's like, hey, I've got 10 grand's worth of Bitcoin. I've got half a Bitcoin. It's easier. I've got half a Bitcoin sat there. Its current value is 10 grand. She might as well stake that and earn some interest on it, even if it's 2 or 3%, so long as the risks are managed. She wants it to be safe. So she would stake that BTC. In another scenario, you've got Justin on the call, Justin's got he's got some fiat money in USDT, in USD in a bank. He's earning 0.5%. And he might go, do you know what? I'm willing to take, I've got 100 grand there. I'm willing to take 20 grand, move it into crypto just to earn more interest. I still like the safety of knowing that it's liquid. If all of a sudden I need 30 grand, I might take that 20 grand out. If he went and bought Bitcoin with it, that might not be worth 20 grand. He might need it, like my instance where I put my fiat into BTC to try and make some more money. He goes to look at it, he's 20 grand's worth 15. So that's not a good space to be in because he needed 100 grand liquid. I've got a friend that has 150K in his business bank account, and he needs the 150K as a buffer. He rarely touches it, but he needs it as a buffer for certain reasons within his business. So if he moves some of that into crypto, which he's done, it needs to be liquid enough that he can take it out in a split second, and it needs to be worth the same value it is in a bank. he's not bothered that over 5 years, the purchasing power is less. It just needs to be 1-to-1. So if he took 20 grand out, in 2 years, when he puts it back, it needs to be 20 grand. And so there are two very different reasons for why you would stake. And it's not to say that you should sell the Bitcoin and stake stable coin, or that you should take your pounds and buy Bitcoin with it. It's just that there are different reasons for different strategies, different purposes, different everything. And both are valuable. Does that help with the sort of the assumption? That's to Neil.
Yeah, that's clear. That's clear. No, I just thought that what you said. I understand the multiple strategies, but look forward to going a deeper dive into DeFi, because that's again a wide.
A lot of rabbit holes in DeFi.
Yeah, a lot of rabbit holes. Thanks.
Cool. So we were going to specifically gonna cover different income strategies. My concern, as someone once said, is that a small amount of information is actually quite dangerous. And me and Richard have steered clear of these sorts of discussions, just because, like I said earlier, there's, just choosing to decide which crypto tokens to buy is full of dodgy tokens and all sorts of stuff. But it's, as an easy answer, you could generally say stick to the top 20. If I was to give a single sentence, that sort of thing. When you're looking at income strategies, beyond things like Celsius, it's not so much there's no chart where you can say stick with the top 10. There's a lot of ways to earn out there, and we stay clear of it because it needs a bit more delicacy. And that's because we really care about the people in FLT to not lose money. And to understand the risks. And when you start looking at how much money you can earn and greed gets in the way, risk becomes a very, the boundaries between where you are and risk really start to bend a little bit. So I'm conscious whether there's even enough time, and I would love to get some feedback on this call. Richard, what's your thoughts? I'm happy to, we'd have to postpone the 9-week pathway one more session if we wanted to just cover passive income strategies in the next call.
I think we could. I think I like you say, I'm completely reticent to sort of give specific coin shouts and those sort of things. But I think from an income strategy, it's like, well, these are your options. If there's enough people that wanted to do that, then I'd say that would be a good shout. But I also think at the moment, a big one of those is going to be stable coins. So we kind of need to see what happens there as well.
Yeah, and that's good. That'll give us 2 weeks to see what comes out from some of these. The EU announced a lot of stuff today. The SEC met yesterday. Like, it's hot, but we have no answers. So I think a couple of weeks we'll see how things settle and how things lie. But then maybe on the next call, we just go straight into income bearing strategies. And if you're sat there right now going, oh, I wanted to learn them right now, there's good practice to just let that settle and sit, because that energy will get you into more strategies than you probably should be getting into. And you will lose money, unfortunately. You can make some decent money in it, but I've had some painful experiences over time, definitely. Myself and Richard. But we're kind of happily share the best of where we've got to. And because of this winter that's coming, and it will come, it's been a big conversation for us behind the scenes in, like, how do we offer a safe space where you're riding the winter that comes, that could be a prolonged winter, it might also not come, but how do we move away from just holding an asset appreciation to some safety and earning with a sliding scale of risk? As long as you guys know where you're playing and you have good money risk management, then you should be fine. These are the things, like, if you can play it nice and safe. So just checking the chat. We're all good. All right, so what I would love, so we'll do that for the call in 2 times. I would love a quick round robin, a couple of new people. I'd love to get some takeaways from, what really impacted you on this call? What did you learn, or what are the things that you might take away and implement or see differently? I would love to ask Ian. I'd love to ask Louise. I'd love to ask Paul, and Justin, if you caught enough of the call, I'd love your take as well. So just a minute, just something that was either an aha moment for you, or that you're going to take away.
For myself,
yeah,
the big takeaway for me is the fact that there is no real one solution, or maybe solution is not the right word. Everybody has so many different ways as to why they are making the choices that they're making in terms of which coins to go with, etc. And that's the biggest revelation that I've gotten. There's no, we're all waiting for the top 10 type thing. What's the top 10? But again, like you just finished saying, it really does depend on what is the motive, what everybody's scenario is so different, and therefore their strategies are going to be so different. So that's a big takeaway for me. I was waiting for that top 10 gold list, that this is what it is, and it's not necessarily so.
No, definitely not. And we haven't really covered it on this call, but big thing Richard always used to say to me is like, why are we here? Why are we doing this? Why is this call? Same for you guys. Why are you in crypto? And if you can answer that question, your options and your decision-making process is just simpler, because you understand the values of why I'm here. Am I here to just diversify some money? Do I want to break out of government systems of control? Like, both are fine, but they're very different answers. So that's really good. I'm glad that penny dropped, man. Thank you very much. Louise, what's your takeaway that you will use this time?
I don't think I fully understood what stablecoins were at the beginning of the call. And I like the idea. I thought that it was like, have money in the bank going down against inflation, or invest it in something that's hopefully going to give you a better return. The idea of a stable coin that kind of fluctuates with the pound or the dollar or whatever, and it's always worth the same, it's not going down against inflation, then you can also earn interest on top of it. It seems like a really great solution to not having money kind of sat in the bank instead. So I think just my understanding of stable coins now is, and how I'm going to use that going forward, where to leave my money sat is definitely a big takeaway.
Yeah, and a little side note for you, Louise, because I know that you can't get a Celsius account because temporarily they've suspended it in the UK. If you look at Kraken, Kraken, Kraken just got granted a US banking license, one of the first crypto exchanges to ever be approved. So in terms of other exchanges that I really look at and think they're going to do well, I think Kraken is safe, and I think I like what it's doing. But they offer stablecoin returns between 8 and 12%. So it's a short stopgap if you just needed an answer, because I know you've been looking for an answer. Have a quick look at Kraken. But I am going to caveat what you just said, because everyone gets excited when they're like, oh, I can take all my money out of the bank and go and earn 15% somewhere. There is risk.
Yeah.
To just, and we've kind of covered a little bit of here, but the biggest risk is where you put it. It's the car park. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Kraken is a good car park. It's got a lot of cameras and some good fences. Yeah, but it's still a car park.
Yeah. I think it's like the stable coins aren't that risky in terms of, like you say, scams and stuff. It's more so, well, the car park, the platform that the stable coins on. Yeah, I get that.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Cool. Rock on. Who else did I say? If anybody wants to share, by the way, just say in the chat and I'll bring you in. Justin, do you have anything that was useful for you on this call?
I think for me, because I'm sort of like in information sponge mode, is as I'm starting to understand the broader ecosystem surrounding. So I've been, in addition to this, I've been participating in like other calls and stuff too. So that's helpful for me too. So right now my general sentiment is to feel excited because I like things that are newer, more frontier based, because I'm sort of a visionary person myself. Additionally, I got a greater understanding of the function of stable coins and why they exist. And it was helpful to learn that in this case, the USDT or other similar ones are actually backed by the equivalent fiat currency. I saw that I think it was this company that makes USDT, that they were also making a gold-backed token, which was of interest, is interesting to me as a, I guess, hedge against inflation without having to own only gold bars themselves. So yeah, so thanks for that added info. I mean, I have like a million more questions, and maybe there's so I'll follow up with you to see if there's a way to address some of those in advance, or whether I just need to kind of be patient through the whole process. But I appreciate you facilitating all this great information.
Cool, no worries, Justin. Thanks for making it. Two quick things on that. First of all, if you're looking at gold peg tokens, PAX Gold, PAX, from the last time I looked at them, because there's quite a few gold tokens, is the most audited. It's the most, if I was to put more money into gold and I didn't want it in gold coins and things, and I wanted it in crypto, I'd buy PAX. I wouldn't necessarily go for some of the newer ones. And as far as questions, I always encourage people, literally just write your questions out, post them in the group, because then it stimulates that conversation. But also, like, I'll always share my 2 pence on all the questions, Richard will, and other people will, and that enables a more richer environment for everyone to grow from it. And then you might still have some more questions afterwards, post them. But that's the first part, is kind of curate them into some questions, throw them in and go, what's the consensus of these? And I'll do a video or an audio response to the lot as well. Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much. Last one, Paul, give us your share and then we'll wrap it up for the day.
Yeah, well, thanks for, there's 2 Pauls, is there?
Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah, go on. All right, then we'll do Paul A and Paul 1. Okay, sorry, who's who? Paul Crudgington. Paul Crudgington, you go.
Yeah, that was really useful. I mean, stable coins was the first thing I got into when I got into crypto anyway. It was just, that was the first step, moving money from fiat into Celsius, and kind of just learning the ropes sort of that way, really. And I think it's about 50-50 kind of split, really, in terms of, I like having something there, which I can earn a good return on. And if the opportunity comes to buy the dip or whatever, then it's nice having that there as well. And I guess it's kind of just treading in, I guess, because when you're so used to the fiat system, and you have been for all your life, to take that plunge and go into something and see the volatility there, it's nice to have something that you can just look at and think, okay, right, that's not going anywhere. I can look at
10 grand is 10 grand.
But actually, getting to that point now where it's looking at, okay, how can I use that? So like the Visa card on crypto.com is amazing. So really looking forward to learn about the additional sort of passive income streams. I think the most reassuring thing was just what you mentioned about, the regulation. It's not just going to disappear overnight. And I guess that was my main that's why I kind of asked the question, really, was, you kind of see stuff like this stuff that's happening with Binance, and all of a sudden you can't take your money out, and you worry, like, are people going to start regulating these coins and they just disappear? But so it's kind of reassuring to know that that's not necessarily going to be the case, but it's just put that thought in my mind, just to to look at those options and to look at alternatives, and just to spread the risk a little bit as well, I think. So yeah, really useful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Cool. Perfect. Thank you very much, Paul A. Paul 1, Sacred Synergy.
Hello. Thanks very much. Sorry about the noise when I was driving there earlier.
Don't worry.
My main takeaway was that just the thank you. My main takeaway was just the question that you answered about Binance. I don't really buy into FUD anyway, but it's good to know that through the research that you guys have done, you feel like Binance isn't going to shut down, or nothing too serious is going to happen there. And my current rabbit hole is like whether to keep my funds on a KYC personal account or go into a foreign entity institutional account or something like that. So I'm trying to do as much research as I can on that at the moment.
Yeah, and there is a space in between.
But you're
that you don't have to have foreign entity or KYC. You can just have nothing, you know. And again, I don't promote to people to or to not pay taxes and to declare all these things, but that you don't have to have a KYC anything. I mean, you do on Binance. On Coinbase, I'm pretty certain it's fixed, but on Binance you don't. On many other exchanges you don't, like KuCoin. So just know that you don't have to make that decision today. And from a tax perspective, this is for everybody in every country. The the most tax you'll ever pay is always on personal tax. So if you own crypto in your own name and you're a tax-paying citizen and you declare that crypto, that is the most inefficient form of tax you can have. There is the highest tax is always personal tax. Companies will always pay less. So I passed that because Paul 1 there was talking about creating a corporate entity. Like, these are still bigger decisions and require thinking about, and you need an accountant, and there's certain boxes you're going to have to tick because you are legally compliant to do something. But if you're thinking about it from a tax perspective, starting to think about the crypto being owned by a company, not by you, is pretty much a better tax solution. I am not a tax advisor and not take it as tax advice, but it's certainly been my experience and is my knowledge to date. So if you're thinking about that, I would always recommend going and seeing somebody. Some of the best monies I've ever paid have been to tax people, even though they charge a fortune. It is worth it. So thank you, Paul. I'm sure we'll have tax calls again at some point. We've had some pretty good chunky tax calls in the past. To everyone that's on here, by the way, we have a whole playlist of all of the 60 odd calls that we've had. In the early days, they weren't quite as named properly, and I try and put blurbs and descriptions in, but always know that you can check back on those if you need something in particular. So a little bit over. Thank you for everyone for sticking around. I want to say thank you for Letitia for making it back on the call. I know you've had a lot on, my dear. I hope it's been useful. Thank you for Ian. I know it's not your first call, but it's certainly the first one you're fully on in the foreground and asking questions. Thank you to everyone else that comes that's new and old. Thank you, Letitia. For everyone that comes up every single week, or for the new people that have joined us recently, as I said at the beginning, myself and Richard run these Future Leaders calls to just really try and help grease the wheels between old worlds and new worlds. The crypto is not a scary space to be in. And a little fact for anyone that thinks that they're still late, I know that Ian, you said you were kicking yourself for not carrying on with Bitcoin. We have the same adoption of crypto today as the internet in 1996, 97. So you think about where the internet was in 96, 97, you're not late. You're not late. It just feels late because the bubble you're in might be talking about crypto, but in terms of actual use and people in it, we're so early. So just be really grateful that you're here today, that you can do things today. And I've no doubt in 3, 5, 10 years, you'll be in the group that's considered early. Maybe not the ones that were 2012, 2013, but you're definitely in the early pack, and that's the same to everyone else as well. So I wish you a really good week, a really good evening or day, depending on where you are. The next call will be in 2 weeks' time, same day, same time, Tuesdays, whatever time you made it on this call. We will only discuss passive income strategies in all of their glory, and see where that takes us to. With caveats on risk at all times, but we will start to share that information and probably just a bit of an update of where the markets are at as well, because we'll have more of an update. So I think that's it. We're all good, Richard?
We are good.
Awesome. So take care, everyone. Have a good day, good time. Wish you all the best, and we'll see you in 2 weeks. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.